It is time once again for another episode of Common Knowledge, the show where I take a look at 10 common Magic the Gathering cards and tell you, that's right, you, whether they're good in the Pauper format or not. We will start with our first card of the day, which is Mind Drain. 2 and a black for a sorcery. Target opponent discards 2 cards, mills a card, and loses 1 life. You gain 1 life. So it kind of feels like a bit of a pox effect, maybe? You know, just in like, here's a bunch of stuff the opponent has to do, and none of it's good. None of it's nice for them. Also, very, very weird that the name of the card Mind Drain took until Zendikar Rising to get. That feels like something that we've had forever. I guess we've had, you know, other cards that have had Mind in it, like Mind. There's like a big brain one. Mind Bomb. Is that the one I'm thinking of? I want to see it. There it is. Mind Bomb. That's the one I'm thinking of. God, I love this card. It's not a very good card, but I love that art. It's one of my favorite. Anyway, and then we've had like Mana Drain and stuff like that. So we've definitely had cards that almost evoke this. Anyway, when we're talking about this for the Pauper format, it's not all that great. It is. You know what? Why did I keep saying Mind Bomb? It's a Mind Rot. Yeah? Like, this is just a better Mind Rot. And it's actually, you know, in terms of a Mind Rot, this is a pretty good one. You know, discards 2 and mills and drains 1. That's a good suite of things to put on a single card. And yet, it's still not very good. Yet it's still not quite there. We've made a better Mind Rot, and yet it's still just a better Mind Rot. What do you give that? What do you give a better Mind Rot? Mind Rot itself is, God, what would you give a Mind Rot? I would give Mind Rot like a 2.1, I guess. So what is better Mind Rot? I'm going to give you a 2.5, I think. My problem with these kinds of effects, these Mind Rot kind of effects, is once you have 3 mana, they've probably thrown a bunch of cards on the table already, and maybe you've even lost the opportunity where discarding those cards really hurts them. It's possible. Or, you know, sometimes it comes at the perfect time because maybe they only have 2 or 3 cards left, and now that you make them discard 2, those are the 2 cards they were really hoping to be able to use at some point. So these can be good, but we have lots of other ways of making people discard cards in Pauper, and those are a lot cheaper and more repeatable than Mind Drain. So yeah, I think we'll go with like a 2.5, 2.6, and we'll leave it at that. Friendly Teddy's 2 mana for a 2/2 artifact creature bear toy, and when this creature dies, each player draws a card. That's a little rough. So we get a grizzly bear, and it's actually a bear. Isn't that nice? 2 mana, 2/2. But, you know, it's almost an outlaw medic in that way, where it dies and you draw a card. But giving your opponent the card is not amazing. It's in fact, it makes it pretty bad. You know, what are we? This is not Commander. We're not doing group hug stuff here. You're trying to win, and I don't think giving your opponent a card, incentivizing them to kill your own creature, is that good? No, I think it's actually pretty bad. In fact, I think it's worse than Grizzly Bear. I think I would generally say Grizzly Bear would be better than this, because I don't want to give my opponent... it's not even card advantage, because you're getting 1 too, although you are losing the creature, so in that way you are kind of down a card, but I think I'd rather just the vanilla creature in most cases. I'm going to give this a 1.9. I think that's the kind of score that tells you really shouldn't play this card. I mean, you shouldn't play this card for so many other reasons, but when you're worse than Grizzly Bear, you're doing something wrong. Weirded Vampire is 3 and a black for a 3/3 vampire horror with Madness. Madness is 2 and a black. So you get a tiny bit of a discount. It's not very good, is it? Like a vanilla 3/3 for 4 mana is really terrible, and a vanilla 3/3 for 3 mana is fine. But you have to jump through some hoops to get it to that point. But if I'm jumping through hoops, I want it to be better than fine. This is also pretty bad. I'm gonna give this. I think this might actually be worse than the teddy bear. I'm gonna give this a 1.8. These are some abysmal cards we've seen so far. Maybe we'll get something better. Our Millery Sphere is 2 mana for an artifact. You can pay 2 and tap and sack this artifact to search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, and then shuffle. So it is one card that eventually gives you 2 cards. That is card advantage, but you're paying 4 mana. Yes, in installments, but you are still paying 4 mana to be able to do that. I don't like that. Like, yeah, it doesn't even have to be 2 of the same basics, so it's not like a myriad landscape in that way. You can mana fix pretty decently with this, but when you put them both in your hand, I don't know. I don't think that's particularly good. This is probably pretty good in your Azusa commander deck. You know, she lets you put another couple lands into play on a turn on each of your turns. So just a thing that says, yeah, we'll make sure you have 2 lands in your hand. That's probably pretty good for that deck. But I don't know if it's very good much of anywhere else. No, I don't think so. Still, I think it's probably the best card we've seen so far today. As much as, I don't know, the Mind Drain's probably better than this. I'll give this a 2.4. And let's keep on rolling. To Kargan Dragon Rider, 1 and a red for a 2/2 human warrior. As long as you control a dragon, this creature has flying. This is from Foundations, and I got to tell you, I opened a couple of boxes of Foundations, and I do not remember this guy at all, and I honestly don't think I own a copy of this guy. And I don't know how that's possible. I don't know how I would have been able to open boxes of Foundations and not get at least 1 copy of every common. This isn't good. Because in some ways, I'm sorry that I keep mentioning grizzly bears, but that's what it is. It's a 2 mana 2/2, so it is a grizzly bear. And it does have the upside that it gains flying at some points, but you have to have a dragon out. And dragons are, for the most part, expensive creatures. It is hard to get cheap dragons out there. You do have changelings. That is something that I guess matters. But I think in our format here, in the Pauper format, you just have so many good 2-drops in red. I would never even consider playing this. You just have so many better options. You have better 1-drop options than this. And so you should just be playing those because this is just taking up space in your deck. That being said, it is strictly a better grizzly bear. So it's got to be better than a 2, which is what I believe I give grizzly bear. I'll give it a 2.1 because it's not that much better than grizzly bear. Let's keep on going. Ooh, here we go. Hey, this is an actual factual Pauper card that sees play. Reckoner's Bargain, 1 and a black for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or creature. You gain life equal to the sacrifice permanent's mana value, and you draw 2 cards. So we see a lot of these, well, not a lot, but we see a decent amount of these 2 mana sack a thing, draw 2 in black. We had Deadly Dispute, and it was so good because it gave you a treasure token that we had to ban that out of the format, just a little too strong. We have Fanatical Offering that is, I would say, more or less the best in class one of those these days, which gives you a map token instead of the treasure token, but everything else is the same. That one's probably the best because it does leave that artifact behind, and that artifact, map tokens are pretty cool, being able to give you a land or at least potentially like a surveil in a way, and a +1/+1 counter. Like, maps are nice. I like maps. And so I also like Fanatical Offering. We also have Eviscerator's Insight from Modern Horizons 3 that is this without the life gain, but it also has flashback on it too. So that's good if you have, more mill style cards where that might just get milled into your graveyard, but it's not a complete loss because you can use the flashback. It's also just good because you can use the spell a second time, even if you didn't mill it into your graveyard. You can use it, and then once it goes to the graveyard, now you can use it again. So I would say, for the most part, all of those that I mentioned, Eviscerator's Insight and Fanatical Offering, those are better than Reckoner's Bargain. Then you have like the 1-mana ones, Corrupted Conviction and Village Rites, that are 1 mana that you can't do it with an artifact, but it's just a creature. You sack a creature at instant speed and you draw 2 cards. Those get used sometimes in like mono black sacrifice decks. But Reckoner's Bargain is specifically good in Grixis Affinity, I believe, or like most Affinity piles, where you're playing some really big mana value spells like Mirror Enforcer, which is a 7 mana spell. And so if you sacrifice your Mirror Enforcer, you're gaining 7 life and drawing 2 cards for 2 mana. That's a pretty sweet deal when you're coming up against that. Now, you can also use this in Jund Wildfire, and people do sometimes, but I think the Affinity ones where you do have those higher mana values of guys that just get cheapened by the Affinity for artifacts, those probably play this more than any of the other deck archetypes do. But man, this can be a real good card, especially if you're going up against those red decks that are really aggressive and you want to continue your gameplay and you don't want to stop. You don't want to just play straight life gain cards in your Affinity deck or your Jund Wildfire or whatever black deck that you're playing that has that. You don't want to just go into life gain. You want to do something that continues your game plan, but also gains you some life, and that's exactly what this card does. It's a solid card, and I'm going to give it a solid score. I'm going to give this a 6.2, I believe. Good card. Good card. I love the art on this one too. Right now, this is going to be our thumbnail, but we'll see if that holds. Felidar Cub, 1 and a white for a 2/2 cat beast. Sacrifice this creature and destroy target enchantment. I think it was yesterday, maybe it was the day before, we had the cat from Tarkir Dragonstorm that was a 2-mana 2/2 with vigilance, and you could pay 1 to sacrifice it to destroy a target artifact or enchantment. So put up something like that next to this guy. Now, yes, they're different colors, so they're not exactly comparable here. But this guy only hits enchantments, but does it for free. But also the body isn't as good. I mean, the body's the exact same. It's a 2/2, but it doesn't have vigilance, so it's losing a little something in its value there. But it's also free to sacrifice and kill the enchantment. You can use that at any time. It doesn't require you to tap the creature, so you can use this guy on offense, or you could even block with him and do like a Sakura Tri-Belter thing where you block and then sack it to, I guess in Pauper it's more like a Eldrazi spawn thing that you would do. Or Scion? I can't remember which one. I think it's a spawn. I think the Eldrazi spawn is the one that I'm thinking of, the Malevolent Rumble one. But you can use this to block a guy and then sacrifice it to destroy an enchantment. It's also really good if somebody's got like a big life linker and you block and you sack this guy so no damage was dealt, so they don't gain the life off it. It is just nice when a creature can sacrifice itself like this for a little extra value. In terms of, and we have to mention it again, Grizzly Bears, this is one of the better bears. It doesn't make it a fantastic card, but it does make it useful in ways that some other Grizzly Bear variants are not. And it's also a beast. Beasts sometimes matter in Pauper as well. There are some beast decks. They are mostly green for the beast decks because you're playing like the Wirewood Savage. Could you make a Selesnya beast deck? Maybe. Maybe you could, but I don't know. This is fine. It feels a little sideboardy because you're just hitting enchantments. So you're really only bringing it in against like a Bogles or a Mono White Heroic or some other deck that might play some enchantments. It's just not quite as good. You see a lot more artifacts in the format, so if this said sack to destroy a target artifact, I think it would probably be a little bit more considered than it is right now. Overall, this is just kind of a fine card, and it's going to get just kind of a fine score. And that score will be 2.5. I think that's... You could probably go even a little bit higher, but I will stick with a 2.5. That's just kind of what I feel on this one. Next up is Sanctum Gargoyle, 3 and a white for a 2/3 artifact creature gargoyle with flying. And when this creature enters, you may return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Okay, little, not a reanimate exactly, but kind of raise dead an artifact. I can dig that a little bit. This guy's also an artifact, so if you're playing multiples, this guy can go get the last one that you lost, and you can just kind of keep chaining them that way. This guy, because it grabs any artifact, you could grab your refurbished familiars and play those in some kind of... I mean, if you wanted to put this in Orzhov Blade, I think it halfway works. It's too expensive. A 4-mana 2/3 flyer it's just not very good in the deck that already has the 2-mana 2/3 flyer in core Skyfisher. And this core Skyfisher does a little bit more work in that it's bouncing the permanents that you want bounced. Whereas this guy, you got to have something in your graveyard first. And you could make that work. You could make some kind of... I probably wouldn't do it with eggs, but eggs are artifacts that very easily go into the graveyard. You're paying 4 mana, though, to get an egg back, get a 1-mana thing. And that's probably not a good use of your time and mana. I don't know. I mean, the dream here is to be able to sacrifice your... you use like the Reckoner's Bargain. You use your Reckoner's Bargain to sacrifice your Refurbished Familiar. You gain 4 life. You draw 2 cards. That goes to your graveyard. Then you play this guy. You grab your Refurbished Familiar back. It puts it in your hand. This is an artifact, so it's making the Refurbished Familiar even cheaper. So now you can play your Refurbished Familiar for, at that point in the game, probably just the single black mana. Make them discard a card. Now you've got a 2/3 flyer and a 2/1 flyer, and you still have 2 cards in your hand, and you did gain 4 life out of the deal. That's a cool sequence when you put all that stuff together. You could even see, and now I play the core Skyfisher, and I bring this back to my hand, and on another turn, I'll play this again for 4 mana, and I'll go grab another artifact out of my graveyard. You can keep those things going. This would work with Blood Fountain really nicely, because the Blood Fountain can grab 2 creatures out of the graveyard. It could grab this. The Blood Fountain now gets sacrificed and goes into your graveyard. Now you play this guy, and you can bring that back. We have lines like that already. And we also have the Leonin Squire, which does this much more cheaply, but also only grabs 1-mana artifacts back instead of any artifact back. There's some pros and cons, but the big con here is 4 mana. 4 mana for this guy is just asking a little too much. In those blinky bounce, or not blinky, in those bounce decks, bouncing this back to your hand and then having to pay 4 mana, you're probably just not going to have the 4 mana most of the time. So while I like him, in fact, I really like him, and I like a lot of the stuff that he's doing. He's probably just priced out of Pauper. If he was even just 1 mana cheaper, maybe you could take off a point of toughness, maybe even a point of power in toughness, and just make it a 1/2. Maybe you could make that justification, but I don't think you can do it here. I'm still going to give this guy a 3.9 because I do like him, but he's just outside of where he needs to be. We have done Narnum Cobra before, but I do like that art. Pretty sweet. We'll skip that one. Null Champion is 1 and a black for a 1. Well, he starts as a 1/1 zombie warrior. I think this is the first level up card that we've done. Level up is a mechanic here. You can pay 3. Well, the level up changes card to card, but at this one at least, the level up cost is 3 generic mana. So for 3 generic mana, you put a level counter on this creature, and you level up only as a sorcery. So it starts as a 1/1. When you level it up once, from levels 1 to 3, this becomes a 4/2. So you pay 2 mana to put this on the board, and now you're paying 3 mana, so let's say 5 mana, to make this a 4/2. And then you can pay 3 more mana, and it's still a 4/2. And you can pay 3 more mana, and it's still a 4/2. But once you've done that one more time, now this becomes a 7/3 that also costs a single black to regenerate this creature. I like the idea of level up. I like the idea of here is a card, here's a cheap card that I get to play, and I can keep investing in it turn over turn, getting a little bit more value each time, using up the unspent mana that maybe I didn't have the perfect play, and well, hey, I can at least throw some mana into this. But doing it at sorcery speed means that you can't ever hold your mana up to do something to the opponent. So you are committing to this, and you're committing a lot of resources. Imagine committing, okay, let's see, 2 and then 3, so you 5 and then 8 and then 11. You've paid 11 mana so far for a 4/2. And then as soon as you pay 14 mana, is that right? I think that's right. 2 and then 3, 3, 3. So that's 11. And then 3 more. And now you have your 7/3. And you still have to keep paying to regenerate the creature. So you're paying at least 14 and then 15 on to be able to keep getting value out of this creature. That just sucks. When you have to commit that much mana on your turn, imagine you've spent 11 mana to get this guy up to level 3. And then once you say, okay, I'll level it up to level 4, now your opponent uses the removal spell. Uses their 2 mana removal spell. Uses a 1 mana removal. You just lightning bolts this guy. Oh, or even, well, once he's a 7/3, now you can regenerate him. So I guess you can get away and stop the lightning bolts eventually. But imagine putting 11 whole mana into this guy, and then you put 3 more to get to 14 whole mana, and before you get this guy leveled up to level 4, lightning bolt. And all that mana, all those turns that you've spent on this guy, poof, gone. Terrible. I hate this. I really, really hate this. I hate most of the level up cards because most of them just are kind of garbage. Ugh, this is such terrible. I wouldn't even say it's terrible card design. It's just a waste. It's a waste. We've wasted enough time. I've wasted enough time. I've wasted enough of your time. We're going to move on and give this guy a 1. I think this truly is a 1. Bottom of the barrel. This is some terrible Magic card. I like the art, but the rest is god-awful. Terrace Worm. Hey, we get a worm. I like worms. So maybe this is my... Maybe this is my reward for getting through that last one. Terrace Worm is 6 and a black for a 5/5 zombie worm with Scavenge for 6 and a black. So when you pay 6 and a black, you can exile this card from your graveyard and put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to this card's power on target creature. Scavenge only as a sorcery. 7 mana for a 5/5 is pretty bad. 7 mana to put 5 counters at sorcery speed on a creature is also kind of bad. But being able to have this is card advantage in a way. You pay the mana, you get this on the table. It deals with being a creature on the table. Somebody goes to the effort of killing this, and now you can use it as another spell out of your graveyard. You're getting double the spell value out of it. But you also are paying double the spell value out of it. You're paying 14 mana over the course of this thing's life. And that's a lot of mana. You should be able to win the game from that. And I don't think this necessarily wins the game for you. This thing has no evasion of its own. It doesn't give any evasion to the creature that you're putting the counters on. Maybe the creature that's getting the counters already has evasion, but ugh. You're doing my worms dirty here. This is I'm supposed to like worms, but I don't think I particularly like this guy. I'm gonna go with a 2.4, and I think we need to do a bonus card. This Aspirate's Ascent, we just did that one a couple shows ago. Bashful Beastie, okay. 4 and a green for a 5/4 beast, and when this creature dies, you manifest Dread. Okay. Manifesting Dread means you look at the top 2 cards of your library, you put one on the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature, and the other on into your graveyard, and you can turn the face card down face up at any time for its mana cost if it's a creature card. Okay, we were talking about the Outlaw Medics and the other cards that do a little bit more, that draw you a card, the Teddy Bear that drew you a card and your opponent a card when it dies. And this kind of does that too. It does a bit of an impression of that. So you are spending 5 mana for a 5/4. I would not say that's the worst rate. It's not an amazing rate, but it's an okay rate. You could do better in green, but still, it's okay. And it's a beast. We talked about beasts too with Wirewood or Wirewood Savage, and this is in the right colors for that. So that's something to consider as well. But Manifesting Dread is an interesting mechanic. I think you can't really consider this as a 7/6, but it's a 5/4 that turns into a 2/2 when somebody decides to stop it, and that 2/2. You get 2 chances, because you do get to look at the top 2 cards of your library. So if you find a creature out of one of those 2, you can put it on the table and then flip it. At not only instant speed, it's like the morph cost thing. So it's a free action that you can do. So it defies timing restrictions. It's pretty neat when you can do that kind of stuff. It messes with the rules a little bit, but it does get you. It mills you something if you're in like a dredge deck like this. Maybe you want the Troll of Khazad-dûm to go into your graveyard so you can exhume it later. So you put the Troll of Khazad-dûm in the graveyard and you put whatever the other card is. Maybe it's just a land, but now that land is a 2/2 creature on the board. That gives what would have been a halfway dead draw as just a land at certain points of the game. That makes a land into a creature. That can be better sometimes. It's also just 2 creatures your opponent has to deal with. Hey, yeah, I got rid of your 5/4, but now you got another 2/2 out there. And yeah, the 2/2 is a lot smaller than the 5/4, but it's still something to be considered. It's something they have to deal with or have to have something that can block it. That's okay. That's okay. I think Manifest Dread is actually a really cool mechanic and a pretty strong mechanic, even if it doesn't really see any Pauper play. But I think it could. I think there are enough Manifest Dread cards that are okay, and they just need to be, in this one's case, it needs to be probably attached to a slightly better creature for us to really play it in Pauper. Like if this thing was a 5/4 with Trample, and then it also got the Manifest Dread. Now it's in a little bit closer to that Avenging Hunter, which is a 5 mana 5/4 with Trample that gives you the initiative, and the initiative is just miles better than the Manifesting Dread most of the time. So that's kind of your problem in green. Is I have 2 5 mana 5/4 guys. Am I going to get this one that Manifest Dread, or am I going to get the other one that has Trample and the initiative? And the answer is you're always going to go with the Avenging Hunter in here. So I think you need to pump this up just a little bit more here or there, tweak it a little bit more to make it more of a side grade to an Avenging Hunter than what we see right now. So as it is, probably wouldn't really see any Pauper play, but I think you could make arguments of why this creature could be useful, even if you'd probably just find better creatures to do any of those roles that you're looking for. I will end up giving this a 3.3. And I think we can call it a day right there. Thanks for joining me. We'll catch you on the next one.